Exposed. Billionaire woman's heartwarming test of family reveals amazing truth about her husband. In the affluent town of Maplewood, Sarah Whitmore was a name everyone knew, like a shimmering star against the backdrop of an ordinary sky. At 38, she was not just a billionaire entrepreneur, she was an emblem of hope and inspiration. Her philanthropic work, from revitalizing local parks to funding scholarships for at-risk youth, had earned her love from the townsfolk. But the woman who appeared to have it all was secretly grappling with an emotional maelstrom lurking just beneath her polished exterior. Desiring to bring her family closer, Sarah had decided on an idyllic retreat weekend. This is going to be transformative, she thought, swept away by the dream of a heartwarming bonding experience. Guests would include not only her extended family, but also Maria, a struggling single mother from the inner city. Sarah envisioned long, laughter-filled evenings gathered around the fireplace, sharing stories and revelations that would melt away their careful facades. But as plans unfolded, a shadow crept in. Her husband, Jack, an earnest man with humble roots, bluntly dismissed the retreat idea, his face tight with practical concern. A gala would be the right move, he insisted, focusing on the glitzy allure of high society. The stark contrast of their visions began to gnaw at Sarah. Disappointment rose in her throat like bile. How could the man who she thought understood her best fail to see the importance of this weekend? The air crackled with unexpressed tension as they sat at the breakfast table. Cereal clinked against bowls, while the walls seemed to hold their breath. "I'm just trying to make a difference," Sarah said, quietly, spoon stilled mid-air. Jack's response was a shrug, his eyes fixed on his phone. It hurt more than she cared to admit. As the weekend approached, her frustration mounted. The heartwarming scenes she had dreamed of began to morph into a fog of hurt. The pivotal moment arrived when she discovered, quite by accident, that Jack had been mentoring Maria's 12-year-old son, Carlos. The haunting revelation hit her like a cold wave. Jack had opened his heart where she thought hers must be the only one that mattered. Confusion and admiration wrestled within her. How could he be doing this in secret? That night, the retreat took an unexpected turn. Familial tensions boiled over amid the crackling campfire. As their topics shifted to privilege and sacrifice, the heat of their discussion mirrored the flames. Sarah's indignation flared like embers. "Why can't you see?" she challenged Jack, whose silence only added oil to the fire. Unbeknownst to her, Jack wasn't just a bystander in this pull between classes. He had sacrificed his own ambitions for a purpose greater than their gilded life. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension peaked. Jack finally admitted, his voice raw and trembling. "You think I don't care? I give my time to kids like Carlos because they need someone to believe in them. Maybe you're so focused on being a savior that you're blind to the truth that some of us do it quietly." Each word felt like a gust of wind, shifting Sarah's understanding. She was forced to confront the depth of their differences, not just individual aspirations, but connected lives shaped by experiences that lingered in the shadows of their hearts. In that moment, as they exchanged vulnerabilities, a local journalist stumbled across their gathering. Intrigued by the philanthropic tales of Sarah, she lingered, but what she witnessed was anything but heartwarming. It was messy, raw, and real, a power struggle illuminated under the stars. And just like that, Sarah realized they had strayed too far from her vision of community. As emotions simmered, Both Sarah and Jack were left grappling with the intricacies of love, vulnerability, and the many shades of privilege. Just when things began to shift, questions loomed large in the air. Could Sarah embrace Jack's vision, or was their love destined to fracture under the weight of unspoken truths? The crackling fire lit up Sarah's face, revealing a myriad of emotions: confusion, frustration, but also a flicker of hope. Jack's words hung in the air, reverberating through the small group gathered around them. The lingering silence felt deafening, punctuated only by the crackling wood and the distant sounds of the night. "Maybe I do focus too much on the grand gestures," Sarah said finally, her voice a soft whisper that felt like a confession. "But don't you see? The gala is just noise. I need to feel like I'm making an impact." Her eyes darted across the circle of family and friends, seeking validation in their faces. Maria shifted on the bench beside her, sadness clouding her features. "We all feel the need to help, Sarah," she interjected gently, "but sometimes it's the quiet acts of kindness that mean the most. I know it's hard to understand when you're on the outside looking in." That stung. The truth in Maria's words pierced through Sarah like an unwelcome chill. Suddenly she felt exposed, stripped of her title and wealth, raw and vulnerable. That was a position she never willingly stepped into. Across from her, Jack's expression softened, but the tension still lingered. "What if we fused our approaches?" he suggested, his voice more composed now. "What if the gala serves to not only showcase your heart for charity, but also connects to the very people you want to help? Events can bridge worlds, plant seeds of understanding." Sarah swallowed hard, uncertainty clouding her mind. "But wouldn't that just be more of the same? Glitz and glamour while the real stories go unheard?" Jack reached for her hand, hesitant but determined. "It doesn't have to be. We could invite Carlos, his friends, all of them. Let them be part of it. Let their voices be woven into the fabric of the evening. You could tell their stories." Her heart raced as she considered the idea. "You'd really want to do that?" "Of course," he replied, squeezing her hand gently. "It's about bringing people together, transforming the narrative." The sincerity in his eyes began to thaw her apprehensions, opening a door to possibilities she'd never envisioned. But just as she was grappling with the shifts in her heart, the local journalist, still eavesdropping nearby, couldn't help herself. "This is the story, the messy, beautiful reality of people trying to connect," she piped up. The brightness of her phone illuminated her captivated expression. "Can I share this? A couple of million people could see how philanthropy isn't just a one-size-fits-all operation." "Wait, can we pause?" Sarah interrupted, her pulse quickening. "Is that what we want? Media scrutiny?" Jack nodded thoughtfully as murmurs of debate rustled among their family. Risking vulnerability was hard, even with the potential for connection, but the air was thick with anticipation. Would sharing this moment spark a genuine conversation about privilege, sacrifice, and community? As they wrestled with the choice, an unexpected voice piped up from the back. Carlos, Maria's son, his cheeks flushed and eyes wide. "Could we do that? Share our stories? I've got some really good ones." His excitement was palpable, infectious even. Sarah's heart swelled. Here was the voice she wanted to uplift, the laughter she longed to hear. Was this the direction she had been yearning for? "Maybe we can trust the process," Jack whispered softly, a shy smile breaking through the tension. "Together." But doubt streaked through Sarah's mind like lightning. Was she truly prepared to lay bare their struggles for the world to see? The fire erupted with a crackling roar as the moments hung precariously in the air. Clarity teetered just out of reach, but it was time for a choice. Could this journey of risk and revelation be the turning point their family so desperately needed? As Sarah glanced over at Jack, she felt a swirl of hope and fear battling within her. What would they decide next? Would embracing vulnerability lead them to a deeper understanding or push them further apart? The night deepened around them, shadows dancing as the fire flickered. Sarah's gaze shifted toward Carlos. There was a spark in his eyes that almost made her feel guilty for hesitating. Could she really let children like him share their truths, no matter how painful? Carlos, she paused, seeking the right words, this is a big step. Are you sure you're comfortable with this? It's not just about telling stories. It's about exposing all of us to the world. He nodded, his enthusiasm unwavering. Yes, that's what makes it real, right? A warmth spread inside Sarah, wrapping around her uncertainty like a comfy blanket. Maybe he had a point. Authenticity could be the bridge that connected the lives she had been shielded from. Jack chimed in. Carlos brings up an important idea. What if this is the breakthrough we've been searching for? Surely a blend of our voices would do more than just a gala founded on glamour. Maria's eyes sparkled with encouragement. Sarah, you always talk about impact. This could be precisely what you need, a chance to really make a difference. The support in their faces filled her with cautious hope. They were all in this together, right? But doubt still loomed large. But what if it backfires? What if people don't understand or spin the narrative? We can control our message, Jack said, his voice steady. If you share your truth alongside theirs, it becomes a collaboration instead of exploitation. Sarah took a deep breath. She was caught in a whirlwind of love and fear. If she agreed, she'd have to confront her privilege. She'd have to let go of the perfect image she cherished so tightly. But could she really embrace the messy, raw honesty they offered? As the flames flickered, Sarah felt her heart race. Okay, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. If we do this, we do it right. Everyone shares, and everyone's voice matters. A wave of relief washed over Jack, and he flashed a grin that made her feel seen, admired, and supported. We've got this, he promised. And so they spent the next few hours sharing, laughing, and even crying. Stories poured out like water from a broken dam. Carlos spoke about his struggles in school, the feeling of being invisible in a world of wealth. Maria shared the sacrifice she made when she chose to come to this country, all for a hopeful future. Jack recalled his challenges too, the things he had to give up in pursuit of their shared dreams. For the first time ever, Sarah felt like she was part of something bigger than herself. With every honest revelation, the family became more of a unit, a shared pulse of heartbeats against the cool night air. The fire crackled on, illuminating not just the physical space around them, but their emotional landscapes as well. Yet as the last embers glowed, something shifted. The buzz of excitement mixed with an unexpected dread. The reality of opening their lives up to the public loomed over them. What if their vulnerability invited more scrutiny than they anticipated? We need to figure out how to make this safe, Sarah said, finally, her voice trembling. I don't want to just throw us to the wolves. Jack nodded in agreement. We can develop guidelines. We protect each other. The weight of their choice hung heavy now, promising both potential growth and the risk of exposure. As they sat there, a new clarity emerged in the air, something stirring deep within them. It wasn't just about vulnerability. It was also about unity, transparency, and accountability. But what would it mean to be transparent in a world that often twisted the truth? As Sarah gazed into the fading flames, a question sparked within her. Would they all be ready when the time for honest revelation came? Would they rise together, stronger, or would the very act of sharing tear them apart? The fire crackled one last time before settling into silence, leaving unanswered questions hanging in the air. The dawn light seeped through the trees, casting a soft glow over the campsite. A new day stretched before them, filled with possibility and tension. Sarah woke first, feeling the weight of the night's decisions still pressing on her heart. She sat up, wrapping her arms around her knees, and stared into the distance, the remnants of their late-night conversation replaying in her mind. When did sharing stories go from just words to a potential life-altering act? The others began to stir, their faces still heavy with sleep, but alive with yesterday's excitement. Carlos, with his perpetual spark, was the first to break the stillness. "So, what's our plan?" he asked, his enthusiasm unshaken. Sarah stood, shaking off the remnants of sleep. "We need to talk about how we move forward. This is real, and we need a strategy." She felt a sense of urgency in her chest. They couldn't just dive into the deep end without properly preparing for the waves that might come crashing down. Maria joined her, eyes bright with determination. "I think we should start by each writing our stories down. Getting them out on paper will help us clarify the message we want to share." "Good idea," Jack said, stretching his arms into the morning air. "Maybe we can create a video. People engage more with visuals." "Yes!" Carlos clapped his hands excitedly. "And we can add pictures, real ones that show our lives." Sarah felt an appreciative smile creep onto her face. Their energy surged through her. It felt like community, hope, and authenticity swirling around them. But hovering at the back of her mind was the gnawing fear of exposure. "What about privacy? We have to be careful what we share. There are details that belong only to us." Jack frowned, pensive. "Right. We can each decide what goes public. Let's create boundaries." They all nodded in agreement, an invisible pact forming. The warmth of the sun began to kiss their skin, adding an almost tangible layer of confidence as they plotted their next steps. As morning grew brighter, they gathered around the fire, now a cold heap of ashes. It was a new kind of energy in the air, almost electric. Thoughts tumbling out, they spoke about their truths, fears, and desires. "Sarah," Carlos said suddenly, "what's your story? We've shared ours. What about you?" It was a question, simple yet complex. She hadn't prepared for the spotlight to move back to her, and it frightened her. I don't know. My life has always been about comfort and privilege," she began, tracing the outline of a lost thought in the dirt. "But that doesn't mean it's easy. I've felt out of touch for a long time." "Then there's your truth," Maria said softly. "We all feel displaced at times." Sarah's heart raced. How could she convey the weight of her past while honoring their experiences? She took a breath, hoping to hide her uncertainty. "Okay, maybe my story is really about recognizing how I've lived and how that's changed since meeting you all." In that moment, she realized this was the start of something much bigger than sharing personal histories. This was unfolding as a path to collective healing. They were each stepping toward something, together. But just as excitement began to ripple through the group, a car engine rumbled in the distance, disrupting their shared moment. Panic rose in Sarah's throat. Who was out there? Did they hear them? A wave of anxiety washed over her. What if today would be the day the world pried too deeply into their lives? "What if," she murmured, glancing at the others, "what if this backfires for real?" The air thickened, and an unspoken understanding settled between them. They had a chance, but was it worth the risk? As the sound of wheels approached, they collectively held their breath, preparing to confront whatever or whoever lay ahead. The engine roared louder, and Sarah felt every heartbeat echoing in her ears. The trees rustled, framing their small, intimate gathering like a stage set for scrutiny. She exchanged worried glances with Maria, who appeared equally unsettled, her brows knitted in concern. Carlos fidgeted, tapping his foot nervously, as Jack, the ever-reliable anchor, positioned himself in front of the group as if to shield them. When the vehicle came into view, a deep blue SUV came into focus, kicking up a cloud of dust as it rolled down the dirt path. Suddenly, the impending panic shifted to a collective curiosity. Who would be driving out here at such an early hour? "Maybe it's just someone lost?" Carlos whispered, though anxiety laced his words. "Let's hope so," Sarah replied, her heart rate flattening slightly, but the tension still clung to her chest. The SUV slowed to a halt, and there was a moment, a heartbeat in time, where everything hung suspended. Then the door swung open, and a tall figure emerged, silhouetted by the morning sun. Sarah squinted, her stomach flipping as she recognized him instantly. Chris, her college friend, the one who had taken a path strikingly different from hers. He had thrived in the corporate world, amassing success while she wrestled with her identity back home. "Sarah!" he called as he approached, the generous smile on his face gradually fading when he noticed the tense atmosphere. "What are you doing here?" she managed to ask, taking a tentative step forward, her heart racing again. The memories tumbled into her mind, dorm rooms full of laughter, late-night study sessions, the time they rafted together down the river. "I was in the area for a charity event," he replied, his voice brightening. "I thought I'd stop by and see you. It's been, 2 years?" Yeah, something like that." She hesitated, wrestling with the feelings of warmth and the unsettling anger that sometimes accompanied old friendships. As Chris stepped closer, the others watched cautiously. "So, who's your crew?" he asked, glancing over the group, his interest suddenly piqued. "This is a project we're working on," Sarah stumbled, glancing at her friends for support, their jaws tight with defensiveness. "Project? What kind of project?" he probed, curiosity glinting in his eyes. Carlos jumped in, as if protecting Sarah's privacy. "We're just gathering stories, like personal truths." "Oh, that sounds intriguing," Chris said, a slight edge in his voice. "But isn't that a bit risky, opening yourselves up like that?" Sarah felt the color drain from her face. The very same questions she'd just posed to the group last night were now circling back to her, stinging like a reminder of every hesitation she had. "Sometimes taking risks is the only way to grow," Jack said, stepping forward, defending their vision. "Is that what you're doing? Growing?" Chris asked, his expression shifting, humor giving way to skepticism. "You could easily get hurt trying to show the world your vulnerabilities." "Or we could help others," Maria interjected, her voice steadier than her bouncing heart. "You never know who might relate to what we share." Sarah pondered what Chris truly thought. Was he here to genuinely reconnect, or did he see them as a spectacle waiting to be dissected? As the silence seeped into the conversation, she could feel a divide growing between their openness and the reservations of the life Chris led. "Sarah," he insisted, "believe me, there are much safer ways to connect with people. This is a risk that might alter your life in ways you cannot foresee." The ambivalence cut through the group. Sarah felt pinned between a safe past and an uncertain future. Was Chris right? The air around them thickened with tension, each side holding its breath. Just then, Chris reached into his bag and pulled out his phone, scrolling through something with swift determination. "What are you doing?" Sarah asked, her voice betraying a hint of panic. "You'll want to see this," he said, glancing up, his expression unreadable. 2 clicks of the screen later, and the world they were on the brink of sharing, every story, every truth, might just hang in the balance. Because what could he possibly reveal that would change everything for them? A chill skittered down Sarah's spine, the realization settling heavily in the silence. What had they truly started? The air shifted as Chris held up his phone, the screen glowing like a beacon. The others leaned in, curiosity battling their wariness. Sarah felt her heart thump harder, the way it did before a big reveal. She could hardly breathe. What could be on that screen, and why did it feel like it could unravel everything they'd worked for? "Chris, what's going on?" she said, trying to remain steady despite the rising tide of anxiety. He ignored her question, scrolling further, his brow furrowed with determination. Just look at this," he urged, thrusting the phone toward her. Hesitantly, Sarah reached out and took the device, her eyes skimming over the words. Photos flashed across the screen, headlines blared, stories about families torn apart by secrets, lives changed in an instant by the unearthing of hidden truths. There among the images was a familiar face, one that sent a jolt through her. Is that your dad?" Maria blurted, her voice cracking the tension like a stick snapping in the woods. Chris nodded slowly. "Yeah, he's been involved in some things that you wouldn't believe. I didn't come here to tell you that, but—" His voice trailed off, the sadness overshadowing his previous cheer. Sarah's mind spun as she read more, her stomach twisting. While Chris had appeared successful, his life had also been a collage of betrayal and turmoil. She could feel her friend's eyes on her, gauging her reaction. "Why didn't you say anything before?" Sarah asked, her tone soft, losing that sharp edge of resentment. "I thought it was behind me," Chris replied, the weight of his admission cracking through. "But it's not. It's all blowing up again. What you all are doing, gathering stories about truth and vulnerability, it hit me hard." Jack cleared his throat, cautious now. "But why show this to us?" "Because—" Chris paused, visibly weighing his words. "This needs to be exposed. There are lives at stake here, and you all are brave enough to open up your own scars. I thought maybe you could help me share this." The tension was nearly unbearable. Sarah felt herself torn, wanting to help but unsure what that meant for her group. Could they risk their own project to dive into someone else's pain? Suddenly she feared what might happen if they engaged with Chris's world. Balancing this precarious act, she could practically feel the stakes rise with each heartbeat. "What do you mean, help?" Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Help me get it out, raise awareness. But in doing so, you may share some of your own stories, too." His eyes sparkled with both hope and desperation. The sun dimmed slightly, casting shadows over the group as silence enveloped them again. Each of them exchanged glances, a silent conversation flickering like the dying light. Finally, Maria spoke up, her voice steady as she asserted, "This could change everything for us. But if we do this, it needs to be on our terms, not just reacting to your situation." Chris nodded vigorously, understanding the trepidation in her words. "Absolutely. I want to prevent others from suffering like my family has." A wave of uncertainty crashed over them. Could they seize this opportunity without losing themselves in Chris's whirlwind? Or would they find clarity amidst the chaos, awakening their own truth? "Give us a moment," Sarah breathed, gathering her strength. As they huddled together, plotting their next move, she could feel the weighty choice pressing upon her, as if history was waiting for them to make a decision. "Will we risk it?" she posed quietly to her friends, the question hanging heavily in the air. The group remained contemplative, the sharp reality of their choices clear but daunting. Just then, a rustle from the trees broke their tension. Were they completely alone in this venture, or would the world around them thrust yet more secrets into the light? Awaiting action, Sarah felt the thrill of possibility and terror collide within her. As she stared into the woods where shadows danced, she wondered if perhaps the biggest truths were still hidden, waiting for them in the darkness. As the rustle from the trees faded, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She turned to her friends, their faces illuminated by the fading light, confusion muddling their expressions. "Did you hear that?" Maria whispered, her eyes darting toward the edge of the woods. Jack nodded slowly, still processing what Chris had just revealed. The atmosphere felt different now. Tension hung thicker than before, prickling their skin. "Guys," Chris broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper, "I need you to understand that if we do this, if we dive into my father's past, we're stepping into something serious. People will talk. There may even be threats." Sarah's heart raced. The weight of Chris's words settled like lead in her chest. She looked back at the phone, at the pictures of families shattered by the secrets Chris's dad had kept. "But what if we don't?" she shot back, fear creeping into her tone. "What happens then?" "Then nothing changes," Chris replied, his eyes pleading. "People keep getting hurt, and no one knows. It keeps spiraling." The outside world faded as thoughts wrestled in Sarah's mind. What did it mean to expose such a raw truth? Could they manage to help someone without losing themselves in the process? Her heart ached at the thought of their own vulnerability looming like a shadow over their project. After a moment, Jack spoke, his voice steady. "We can't just rush in blind. We need to think about this. What's the cost?" He glanced at the group for support. "Maybe it's a chance to be more than just a group of friends," Maria suggested, her voice strong. "This could be our chance to make a real difference." "But at what personal risk?" Sarah countered, her concern sharp. "What if this becomes too consuming? What if we can't handle the fallout?" The air grew heavy with possibility and dread. Sarah looked to Chris. Was he ready for what could come his way? For a moment their gazes locked, and she saw something break in him, a flicker of vulnerability that mirrored her own. "We can't turn our backs on this," Chris urged, desperation laced through his words. "I can't do this alone. You're the only ones I trust." As Sarah stood there, contemplating, the forest seemed to close in around them, a sea of uncertainty ready to engulf them all. Every instinct screamed for caution, for safety. Yet there was a deeper pull, a promise of impact that called to her heart. "You're right," Sarah finally said, swallowing hard. "We can't let fear stop us, but we have to approach this carefully." They huddled closer, the conversation shifting back to strategy. What stories could they share? Where would they begin? As ideas flowed, a cautious excitement began to bubble beneath the fear. They could turn their vulnerability into strength, use it to shed light on the truth. But just as they began to buoy their spirits, a figure emerged from the shadows beyond the trees. The sunlight illuminated a face that sent a chill through the group. It was a stranger, his presence both disarming and foreboding. "Is this what you're looking for?" he called out, brandishing an envelope that shimmered ominously in the fading light. "What do you mean?" asked Sarah, her pulse quickening. The unknown threat loomed closer, and the gravity of their choice shifted dramatically. Chris's eyes widened. "No, that has to be—" Would this stranger be a harbinger of the storm they were stepping into, or a chance to unearth the truth they sought? One thing was clear. The stakes had just risen, and their journey into the heart of darkness had only just begun. The stranger took a few cautious steps forward, the envelope hanging loosely from his fingers. Shadows danced across his face, but Sarah could make out a kind of grim determination in his eyes. She sensed the tension rising, thick and suffocating. Her mind raced, weighing the possibility that this man held answers or danger. "Who are you?" Jack's voice broke through the charged silence, direct and demanding. The group instinctively shifted closer together, an unspoken pact forming around their shared fear. "Just someone who knows," the stranger replied, his tone matter-of-fact. "Knows about Chris's father and what he's done. If you're diving in, you'll need this." He lifted the envelope, revealing a dusting of dirt on its surface, as if it had been buried for years. "What do you mean, what he's done?" Maria asked, light creeping back into her voice, though apprehension lingered. "What's in there?" "The truth," the stranger said, allowing a fleeting flicker of sympathy to pass over his features. "But be warned, truth comes at a price. You won't just uncover hidden stories, you might stir up memories best left alone." For a moment, disbelief painted the group's faces. Chris remained frozen, his eyes locked on the envelope as if it were a portal to another world. "Why do you care?" he managed to choke out. "Who sent you?" The stranger took a deep breath, steeling himself. "I'm not here to play games. I've lost people because of what happened, because I refused to look away. But if you want to help others, you can't be blind to the storm you're stepping into. Secrets have claws. They can tear you apart." As Sarah listened, her heart raced. Each word weighed heavily, dragging at the edges of her uncertainty. Could they really change anything? Was it worth risking their own peace? The prospect filled her with both dreadful excitement and fear. She stepped forward, guided by instinct. "Show us," she prompted, her voice steady despite the tremor beneath. "We want to know. We are willing to listen." The stranger paused, clearly weighing her words. Then, slowly, he handed her the envelope. Their fingers brushed accidentally, and a jolt of something electric passed between them, a sense of connection in a moment defined by fear and urgency. "Inside, you'll find the beginnings of something bigger," he warned as he took a step back, keeping his gaze fixed on Chris. "But realize, no one is truly prepared for the truths of their past." The moment felt elongated, as if time held its breath. Sarah opened the envelope, her hands trembling with anticipation. Papers folded carefully inside were worn, edged with time. She pulled out the first document. Familiar names stared back at her, families Chris had shown them in those heartbreaking photographs. An uneasy whisper of potential swirled around them, heavy with fear and hope. The first page held a list of events that began long before their time, people, tragedies, and patterns steeped in deception. Each line blurred the boundaries of normalcy and shattered the illusion of safety they had known. "What now?" Jack asked, his voice barely above a murmur. Before anyone could respond, the distant sound of sirens began to wail, echoing off the trees. They were approaching. The urgency of the moment swamped all logic, pushing them toward the edge. "What if this is just the beginning?" Maria whispered, staring at the documents. "Or the end," Chris added, his thoughts racing ahead of him. The weight of the stranger's warning loomed over them. They had a choice now, to turn back or to plunge into a truth that could redefine everything. As the sirens grew closer, a shadow fell heavier over Sarah's heart. What would it reveal about the world they thought they knew? This was their moment, teetering on a precipice. The answers were at their fingertips, pulsing with promise and peril. Would they grasp them or let them slip away? The sirens blared closer now, cutting through the thick tension hanging in the air like a knife. It was a siren song of urgency and dread. Sarah glanced at each face, reading the storm of emotions reflected back at her: fear, hope, uncertainty. She could see the questions swirling behind their eyes. Was it time to dive into the abyss? Was the truth worth the risk? "Let's figure this out together," she urged, holding the envelope tightly in her grasp, as if it were a lifeline to something greater than themselves. The others nodded, but their faces carried the weight of their decision. With a shaky breath, Maria reached out and took the first sheet from Sarah's hand. It was a list, but not just any list. It contained names of people linked in some way to Chris, and more troublingly, to his father. Each name felt like a hammer striking at the foundation of their lives. The exposure of these connections threatened to change everything they thought they knew about their town, their families, and even themselves. "What do we do with this?" Chris's voice wavered as he scanned the names, memories coiling tightly around him. Sarah could see the hurt flash in his eyes. It was as if each name called forth stories long buried. "Maybe we start with what we know," Jack suggested. "Each name means something. It has history." "History full of secrets," Maria muttered, her fingers trembling as she ran them over the fragile pages. "What if we're not ready for it?" But Sarah felt a stirring within her, a spark igniting a surge of courage. "We owe it to ourselves to understand. We owe it to Chris." Even as she said the words, doubt still flickered in her mind. Could they unearth something so destructive that it would tear them apart? The siren's wail grew more pronounced, sending a chill down her spine. They wouldn't have much time. "Look!" Maria exclaimed, pointing at the bottom of the page where a date was scribbled in fading ink. 10 years earlier, the day of a tragedy that changed everything about their small community. This can't be a coincidence. Chris leaned closer, inspecting the document as a frown creased his brow. "My dad, he never spoke about it. It was like the past vanished. The only thing he mentioned was that it was for our own good." "That sounds like the kind of thing people say when they're hiding something," Jack replied, his voice tightening with determination. Silence fell among them, heavy with realization. The truth they were about to confront went deeper than they had anticipated. Sarah lifted her gaze towards the gathering shadows, feeling an unseen force. "We have to go back further," she said suddenly, the words spilling out as if they had always been there. "What if we look at the connections between these families? What if we go to the locations where these events took place?" Chris nodded slowly, his fear giving way to a flicker of hope. "Then we lay bare the past. My dad can't keep his secrets locked away anymore." As they prepared to move, Sarah felt panic braid with excitement. Part of her wanted to run from it all, to turn back before the roots of their lives twisted and turned into something unrecognizable. But another part, the stronger part, knew they had to press forward. With adrenaline coursing through her, Sarah folded the document, slipping it into her pocket like a flag of commitment. "Let's go. We'll face it together," she said, her voice firm now. And as they turned to leave, the growing wail of sirens vibrated in the air like a warning bell. Sarah couldn't help but wonder, was uncovering the truth a path to liberation or a descent into chaos? They stepped onto the road, hearts pounding, hope and fear intertwined. The journey ahead promised pain, discovery, and truths that could either heal or destroy. What awaited them in the shadows of hidden memories? Who would emerge unscathed when the past was finally laid bare? As they moved cautiously down the winding road, shadows stretched between the trees like whispers of the past. The echo of sirens faded, but the looming sense of urgency remained. They were on a path filled with uncertainty, their hearts dancing between hope and dread. "Mistakes can't be repeated," Jack said quietly, his voice firm yet tinged with worry. "We need a plan. We can't just jump in without knowing where we're headed." "Agreed," Sarah replied, the envelope still tucked in her pocket, a weighty reminder of the choices they had made. "But we can't let fear stop us. If we start digging, we need to do it together." Maria placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "That's right. We face this head on. Whatever comes, we face it as a family." "Family," echoed Carlos, his voice filled with youthful determination. "It doesn't matter how hard it gets, we're in this together." Their resolve steadied her. With each step, the sunlight streamed less, merging into a richer tapestry of twilight hues. Sarah glanced at Chris. His face was a mixture of anxiety and anticipation, a societal outcast ready to reclaim his narrative. "What do you want to find out?" she asked him. "I want to understand," Chris admitted, his eyes wide with an intensity that pulled Sarah in. I can't let my dad define our story anymore. If I dig deep, maybe I can pull some meaning from the wreckage." As they hiked deeper into the heart of Maplewood, they approached a location that stirred both memories and questions. The cemetery loomed ahead, a reminder of lives lost and stories locked away. It was here where they could start unraveling the threads. "This was where the tragedy happened," Chris said, his voice barely above a whisper as he looked at the weathered stones. "It was a car accident. My dad told everyone it was a freak occurrence, but I've always had this itch, as if he knew more than he let on." "What if we start tracking the families involved?" Maria suggested, her fingers tracing the names on the memorials around them. "We may discover connections that explain why these secrets were kept." With cautious steps, they began a meticulous search, drawing on old records and community papers available online. Each new name sparked discussions, unraveling truths layered beneath suburban life. The group became a flurry of activity, gathering information, sharing stories, and piecing together the shrouded history. Hours passed like moments, the sun dimming while their eagerness lit up the gathering dark. As they began to land upon pivotal moments in their town's history, Sarah felt the swell of something monumental. It wasn't just a search for Chris's family history anymore, it was a shared quest that brought them closer together, a merging of lives once separated by privilege and circumstance. "Look at this!" exclaimed Jack, leaning over a photograph he had uncovered depicting a smiling family outside an old diner. "This was taken on the last day before it all went south, a day before the accident." "Why does that matter?" Carlos chimed in, curiosity piqued. "Because these people, they went from joy to grief in an instant. There's a whole story in those moments just before tragedy strikes," Jack explained. "They deserve to be remembered." A collective hush fell over them, the gravity of their mission settling. The scars of the past were real, but could be acknowledged and shared. Driven by a mix of resolve and vulnerability, they reached out to the remaining families connected to that fateful day. Sarah's heart raced as emotions swirled, nervousness, hope, and fear all residing in the same space. The first family agreed to meet them, and as they approached the designated cafe, Sarah felt an urge to retreat. What if their journey stirred memories that were better left buried? But as they stepped into the cafe, something shifted. The air hummed with anticipation. Familiar faces greeted them, each marked by shared pain and unspoken sorrows. "Thank you for coming," an elderly woman said, her voice trembling as she forged the first step into the conversation. "It's taken years for some of us to even discuss what happened that day." These stories flowed freely, like a river breaking barriers. Each word was a catharsis, filled with emotion, empathy, and the unyielding desire to make sense of their shared past. As Sarah shared her own experience, the hurt of privilege, the desire to change, and her struggles to exist amidst it all, tears welled in the eyes around her. Slowly, the room transformed, merging their worlds and exposing a shared humanity that transcended backgrounds. When it was over, the elderly woman clasped Sarah's hand firmly. "You brought light to our darkness. Together we heal these wounds." That was the moment Sarah realized they had done more than just uncover stories. They were forging a new narrative, a confluence of hardships and hope that could shape their town's future. As they left the cafe, each face bore an expression of satisfaction and renewed connection. They weren't just individuals anymore, they were a community of voices merged in harmony, ready to uplift the next generation. Later that night, gathered around a modest campfire, the warmth reflected in their eyes was a testament to transformation. "I can't believe we actually did that," Carlos said, his youthful exuberance lighting up the dark. Sarah watched Chris, who was expressing gratitude to everyone. "This is just the beginning," he said, a smile spreading across his face amid teary laughter. "Together we'll continue to expose the truth," Jack said, his determination palpable. "Not just the bad, but the strength and vulnerability. The world could use more of that." And in that moment, a new vision formed, a community embracing all aspects of life, working as one to heal the past and pave a path forward. They had faced the uncertainty together and emerged radiant. As the embers of the fire danced, Sarah's heart swelled with a profound sense of belonging. Exposing the truth wouldn't tear them apart, but knit their lives together like strong threads in a tapestry, a shared history rich with pain, yet bursting with hope. Together they had found their voices, their purpose, and their intricate place in the world. Now there was no turning back. The journey ahead was uncharted, but guided by unity, they marched into the dawn of a new day, with courage lighting their path. The fire died down, and they fell into the quiet embrace of night, knowing that together they could face anything. If you found inspiration in this story, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to join us on this journey and not miss the next exclusive stories. Hit that like button like it matters, because it truly does. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second. Your support means everything. Comment below your thoughts and feelings about this incredible journey. Let's start this conversation.